Apparently, the United States is now at war, and it happened quick. I mean, just a few days ago, the military deployments to the Caribbean were described as a standard counter-drug operation, but now senior administration officials are saying that we have declared war on the drug cartels. I mean, we even have some media figures using this as a justification to explain the kinetic strikes, footage I'll show here in a second. They're saying this isn't a legal question, it's war. And in war, of course, we kill the enemy. Now, starting out here with a statement made yesterday by the Senior Director for Counterterrorism in the White House, Seb Gorka, saying, hey, look, we've declared war. This is what it is. Here we go.
We have declared war on those who are murdering Americans by the tens and hundreds of thousands. If you're on the side of the cartels, you're not on the side of America. If you are turning an...
Are we going to go to war with the doctors that prescribe opioids to everyone?
MS-13 human trafficker into a Maryland father, you are choosing the side of evil. 18 million Americans chose this response to the terrorists and the jihadis, of which we have killed more than 312 in the last 8 months, and also the cartels. And there's a reason. Let me just share with you how serious we are. This is the phrase. It's on the lanyard of my team from the president's first viral tweet when we took out that ISIS leader in Somalia 11 days into this administration. We will find you and we will kill you. If you're a jihadi with American blood on your hands, if you're a cartel member bringing powdered death into America, you have declared war on us and we will turn you into red mist. It is that simple.
Honestly, they should put those in like Happy Meals. That would be badass.
You know what comes to mind is that scene in The Office where Michael Scott walks out and says, I declare bankruptcy, and people are like, it's not just, you can't just say it. And he says, I didn't say it, I declared it. Same thing here. Seb Gorka declaring that we are in a state of war does not mean that we are in a state of war. But the messaging here is really important. Of course, the United States has not formally declared war, an act that has to be done through Congress since World War II. But it's not just Gorka saying that. We're going to see here similar statements here from Secretary of State Marco Rubio talking about how the president right now is set on waging war on narco-terror organizations, adding, it's going to happen again. Here we go.
The United States has long, for many, many years, established intelligence that allow us to interdict and stop drug boats. And we did that. And it doesn't work. Interdiction doesn't work because these drug cartels, what they do is they know they're going to lose, 2% of their cargo. They bake it into their economics. What will stop them is when you blow them up, when you get rid of them. So they were designated as what they are. They are narco-terrorist organizations. So the same information and the same intelligence mechanisms with maybe a higher focus was used to determine that a drug boat was headed towards eventually the United States. And instead of interdicting it on the president's orders, he blew it up. And it'll happen again. Maybe it's happening right now. I don't know. But the point is, the president of the United States is going to wage war on narco-terrorist organizations.
Blows up.
This one was operating in international waters, headed towards the United States to flood our country with poison. And under President Trump, those days are over.
Now, something I want to highlight as we play a few more of these clips, we've got Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, maybe soon to be Secretary of War. I heard that's coming today. And then Vice President Vance is... There's been a lot of pushback on the administration about the legal justification for this action. And we're going to hear from Senator Rand Paul here in a second, who I think does a really good job kind of walking the line, explaining, even though we might like the end result, it doesn't mean that's necessarily what we should be doing, and tries to pick apart why this is any different than if they were arrested just off the coast of Florida. But what you'll hear from a couple senior officials here, in my opinion, is more explaining why this is going to work. Like Rubio there says, if we just arrest them, and he said in previous clips, they end up just going back home and doing it again. The cartels plan for this sort of loss, but if we blow up a ship, it sends a message. I think that's probably accurate, right? And you're going to hear similar statements here from Secretary Hegseth and Vice President Vance, kind of saying this will work.
Let's see if the cartels do it again. I mean, I'm down for more entertainment.
Rather than this is why we are authorized to do what we did. Let's give a quick listen here to Secretary Hegseth yesterday, I believe, speaking at Fort Benning, Georgia, met with the media just after that engagement. Here's what he had to say.
Designated, we have those authorities, and it's about keeping the American people safe. There's no reason for me to give the public or adversaries any more information than that. But if you're trafficking drugs and you're a known cartel entity, a
You need to
designated
die.
terror organization, and they're headed for the United States, or part of a process that would head to the United States, that will have lethal consequences. The poisoning of the American people is over. We knew exactly who they
What
were.
about the FDA
Exactly what they were doing, what they represented,
and the jab?
why they were going where they were going. Why would I tell you that? We have plenty of ways to determine how we know who is who.
And the audio video sync was pretty rough on that one. I'll try to clean it up in production, but I downloaded like 3 or 4 different versions of that clip, and for some reason, whoever had the video on site there did not get a clean recording. But we get
play
the
rock,
gist of
paper,
what Secretary
scissors
Hegseth
every
is
time
saying.
there's like a
Vice
ghetto
President
boat
Vance
out there.
also asked a couple days ago about the justification for the strike. And again, this is something that a lot of people are asking is, why? Like, normally you would arrest these people. Recently, we've seen a lot of arrests in international waters, and certainly as they approach the U.S. coastline, of traffickers.
Blowing them
So
up is
why all
more
of a
fun.
sudden a hellfire strike in the back of the boat? Vice President
fun.
Vance, this is his response.
With this.
On the Venezuela vessel strike, what legal authority were you guys working under, and will there be an after report?
What authority?
Well, I'm sure there will be an
America.
after report. I mean, the legal authority, and I want to talk about these kids, is that there are people who are bringing literal terrorists who are bringing deadly drugs into our country, and the President of the United States ran on a promise of stopping this poison from coming into our country. Another question?
So we are still waiting for what I would say is like a unified message on the legal justification for the strike. What you're hearing from these different officials, I would argue, is a justification, but it's not the legal aspect that a lot of people are looking for. Again, cartels, bad. Drug traffickers, bad. These cartels are doing damage to the United States and the American people, bad. All of that, like, check all of those boxes. There's the justification piece, why we don't like them and maybe would arrest them, target them, or label them foreign terror organizations. It's the, we talked in a recent video, a lot of it has to do with imminent threat. Like, if somebody gets ready to open fire on you, they're aiming their rifle at you, you kill them, that's an imminent threat, right? You're reducing that threat. Mm-hmm. It seems like that might be the direction that's taken here, albeit this is a bit standoffish, right? Because you're moving from the drugs entering the United States, say, to exiting the coast of a country in South America. Now, personally, I think Senator Rand Paul, a Republican here, actually made some pretty valid points on why we need to be careful with this and really have the conversation about why did we do it this way. The point he raises is, look, this boat, if they had continued on their journey and made it a few more hours or however long it takes, and we spotted them off the coast of Florida, we would not have carried out a hellfire strike to blow up that boat. That's not what we do. That would have been shocking. We would have arrested them. So why is it so different that they would have been arrested along the U.S. coast, but if they're along the coast of another country, we are killing them? And I think if you really think about it, that is a pretty interesting disparity here. But either way, turning to Senator Rand Paul answering some of these questions, here we go.
So the president basically said that these guys are terrorists. You can kill terrorists. You can't, I guess, kill drug dealers just for dealing drugs, right?
Well, this is,
Well,
brings
label
up
them
the
all
question.
terrorists.
So, we assume these people were bad people and drug dealers, but if they were caught off the coast of Miami, we would stop the boat. If they don't shoot at us, we don't shoot at them. They're confiscated, they're put in jail, and then they go through a trial to prove what they were doing. And if they have 20 pounds of cocaine or heroin or something on the boat, they'll be convicted. The reason we have trials, though, and we don't automatically assume guilt is, what if we make a mistake and they happen to be people fleeing Venezuela
with cocaine in their boats?
Dictator.
Okay.
I think probably that,
was
we
fleeing
had
my
the facts
country
correct.
and
I
there's
found
like
bad
50
people
bricks
here.
of coke
But that's
in
the
this
reason,
boat.
like, off our coast, it isn't our policy just to blow people up. We don't blow up ships entering our waters unless they're, hell-bent on attacking another ship, or unless they are resisting with gunfire.
We should start
arrest
doing it, though.
people.
I mean,
So it is difficult, and it's hard because obviously they're bad people. So people are like, they want something bad to happen to them. But typically, even the worst people in our country, if we accuse somebody of a terrible crime, they still get a trial, basically. They get a lawyer, they get their day in court.
Yeah.
So personally, I do feel like we're seeing a lot of those appeals to emotion, if you will, where the commentator there says, I think this is a great deterrent. It very well might be. That's not the argument here as to whether or not blowing up drug boats will accomplish the end state. There's definitely fewer traffickers. There's one less boat available.
it does send a message, Keep blowing these motherfuckers. It's like Vlad the Impaler, fucking putting people's head on a spike. Ain't nobody going to his fucking house with all those heads,
right? That all seems like a net positive towards having an impact on drugs flowing into the United States. But that's not, to me at least, not the important question. It's the legal aspect here. And what I think is interesting is how that commentator then circles back to what we heard from Seb Gorka and Secretary Rubio, where he says, hey, look, this is a war, man. In war, we kill people. I don't understand what the issue is. So you're already starting to see the language of framing this as a war. And that, of course, changes what is permissible and what is not. But here, give that a quick listen.
But if we're at war, you know, what we blow up bad guys all the time. I think that's what they're saying, this is a war. And we do have, I mean, obviously, you know the numbers of how many people in this country die from illicit drugs that come in from Central and South America. A lot of them have fentanyl and other very dangerous ingredients in them. I mean, people drop dead all the time. I mean, they kill 100,000 people a year on a bad year, 100,000 Americans dying. That does kind of feel like a war.
It's also why in our country war is the exception. So when we have a war, it was intended that we would declare war, it'd be a big vote of our Congress. And then at that point in time, we say, if that enemy, if we are at war, let's say with Venezuela, then we say their ships are, you know, free to shoot them anywhere they are, anytime. And so we kill them off their coast, we kill them in their country, but we've declared war on them. It's a little harder here because this is a crime and this is a criminal syndicate. So look, once again, no love lost for the people who died that are trying to infiltrate our country with this filth. But at the same time, you have to realize it's not as simple as it may sound that, oh, let's just kill drug dealers, because sometimes you have to figure out who people are before you kill them. That's the problem.
So anyways, I do think Senator Paul did a pretty good job of laying that out and explaining what the issue is. And hopefully now that Congress is back in session.
I mean, even if these boats weren't drug dealers and the United States just said they were drug dealers, would anybody even give a fuck? Like, would we even care? Like, we're America. I feel like we could get away with that shit, you know? There could literally be a boat of kids and they just blow them up. Be like, yeah, those little kids, they were actually midgets smuggling crack.
He's able to bring this to some sort of debate in some way, shape, or form about the use of U.S. military force in these counter drug operations. Again, I don't think you're going to see any pushback in the United States, for the most part, of supplementing our brave Coast Guard men and women that are out there trying to enforce the laws and trying to interdict drug traffickers. They need help. I mean, we just talked with Sal yesterday from what's going on with shipping, and one of his comments was the Coast Guard is traditionally underfunded and undermanned. They need more help. This is a massive problem they're trying to get their arms around.
They need more missiles.
Great. Send the Navy down. They can assist in so many
more
different ways.
Hellfire missiles.
But the transition then to a lethal strike that is taking the lives of even bad people definitely changes what this counter-narcotics operation looks like. Now, fortunately, we've not really seen any sort of escalation, which has to be a concern here. However, yesterday we did see what I would argue is the first real response from the Venezuelan regime around the U.S. deployment off their coast. In fact, it looks like, according to a statement here by the DOD, 2 old F-16s from Venezuela did a show of force over a U.S. Navy vessel in the Caribbean. So a statement put out by the Defense Department saying, quote, today, 2 Maduro regime military aircraft flew near a U.S. Navy vessel in international waters. This highly provocative move was designed to interfere with our counter-narco-terror operations. The cartel running Venezuela is strongly advised not to pursue any further effort to obstruct, deter, or interfere with counter-narcotics and counter-terror operations carried out by the U.S. military. So again, technically no escalation, a show of force, and these are some old aircraft, no doubt, and the U.S. certainly has the capability to interdict and intercept those aircraft. But you're seeing a bit of a move up the chain, right? And I think it's notable to keep an eye on that whenever we see it. But at least as of now, no serious escalation following the U.S. move of military assets down to the Caribbean, and then of course the strike 2 days ago against that Go Fast boat moving from Venezuela to the United States. But that's all we got for now. Again, for anybody interested, we just stood up a Patreon program a couple days ago. We got our first AMA or Q&A from patrons here in a couple days. I'll put up the link in the description. If you got any questions, we're going to try to do those AMAs pretty frequently. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm already kind of excited to see some of the questions coming in. But if interested and able to support the work, that link to Patreon is in the description below. But thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.
Well, guys, I say let's keep fucking blowing up these boats. They're gonna get the message, you know. It's just gonna be a matter of time. They're like, you know what, man? America has all these goddamn satellites and recon planes, and we don't have the technology to smuggle this shit. It's just a suicide mission at this point, and then they just won't do it. I mean, unless they're suicidal, unless the cartel hires suicidal people, then yeah, I guess they're good to go, but they'll still end up dying anyways. Um, but yeah, I don't see the cartel pursuing anything crazy. I think they're gonna wait for it to maybe die down. And I don't know how long we're gonna be out there, but I don't think the cartel's gonna do anything unless they really want to die. Anyways, y'all, I'll catch y'all later.